Hi! So today we are going to do some more things in Procreate. Now that we've learned how to cut things, we're going to learn how to use some more of the tools that Procreate has available for us. And so today we're going to learn about what are called clipping masks. So you see I have this photo inside of my person's headband. So before it looked like this, and then I'm going to show you how to kind of replace parts of things with other things and keep them locked in. And I'm also going to show you how to take your layers, duplicate them, and create what are called layer groups. And so for this assignment, we are going to be using images we've already cut out just to make our lives easier so we don't have to cut out things every single time. So we're going to work on a completely new file, not something old. So you're going to hit the little plus. You can use any size that you want to for today to save space. Instead of using the 8.5 by 11 inch screen that I was using before, canvas that I was using before, I'm going to just click on the screen size one. It'll automatically put it in horizontally for me, but you can just flip that to vertically if you prefer it. So I have just a blank screen right now. I'm going to copy and paste some of the work that I've done in previous projects so that I don't have to cut things out again. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to make this kind of group of pomegranates. So as you can see here, I have just the same image over and over again. So I'm not going to cut that out every single time. I'm just going to copy and duplicate, and I'm going to copy this one that you see at the bottom here. I'm going to make that blue, hit on it, and you see there's rename, select, and copy. And so I'm going to hit the copy button. It'll tell me that layer is copied. And I'm going to bring this into my new file. So there are two ways that I can paste in my little fruit pomegranate onto here. The first is I can slide 3 fingers down, and that will bring up my copy and paste menu. So to bring up your copy and paste menu, you slide 3 fingers down your screen carefully all at the same time, and then you can hit the paste option. So there's my pomegranate, and it puts it the same size and same kind of location it thinks that I want it to go. So that's one way to do this. Another way to paste something, if you don't remember the 3 fingers trick, is you can go into your actions, and then as long as it's copied, you can hit the paste button, and that will also do the same thing, just pasting it where it thinks you want it to go. So last file, it was in this bottom right corner. It's putting it there again, assuming the size that I want. So I don't mind that it's there. It doesn't really matter where I put it right now, but I want to make sure that I put it somewhere that it's not totally cut off. So if I put it off to the edge over here and leave it alone, you see that now if I try to move it, it's just completely deleted the side of it that was cut off. So I want to make sure that I'm placing it somewhere, at least the original one is somewhere that it's not cut off. So now instead of pasting over and over and over again, what I'm going to do is make copies of this. So I'm going to rename this. This is a pomegranate. So rename your layer. And then I'm going to swipe it towards the left, and you see there's a lock, duplicate, and clear. So I'm going to hit the duplicate button, and you see that there's one above it now. That one is blue, so I'm going to click at the top, my little move tool. It's technically called the transform tool, so that little arrow. And now you can see I have 2 copies of this exact same fruit. With this one, I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to have it maybe a little bit bigger. Just move it. And I don't mind if this one gets cut off a little bit. It doesn't really affect me because I still have my original. So now that I have 2 pomegranates, again, remember if I try to move this one, it's cut off everything else. So I don't want to make another copy of that one. I'm going to keep copying the one that's full and edit from there. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. You move it around, flip it horizontally. Oops. So just kind of play around until you have at least 3 different versions of this. So I'm just going to keep duplicating and moving things as I see fit. And they can overlap each other. Not a big deal. So I'm always copying the bottom one because I know that that one is still full. This one I'm going to move up a little higher. So the way that the layers work is things that are lower down are going to get blocked up. Things that are higher up are going to be in the front. And so I'm moving this kind of smaller one up to the front. If you want to rename things to make it a little bit easier for you to understand which one you're dealing with, then that's fine. You can kind of see in the preview, I know that the third one is going to be that one that's upside down. So I can see in the previews, this one is the one on the side that's cut off. So it gives you a preview even though they all have the same name, which is fine. I don't really like this white background, so I'm also going to change the background up at least for now. Let's go with kind of this muted color to match the shadows that are happening in there. Okay. So now I have a bunch of different pomegranates. And these are great. There are 5 different layers that are all named the same thing. If I ever want to move one of them, I probably want to move all of them. And so I'm going to show you how to create a group. So grouping things is really easy in Procreate. There's a couple of ways to do that. So one is if you hit on the layer, you can hit at the way bottom, there's a merge down option and a combine down. Those are your last 2. So merge down will turn them into a singular layer, which is not really what I want. If I hit combine down, it'll create what's called a group. And so that's one way to do it. I can just keep kind of merging things down to like add them together. Oops. But I don't really want to do that one at a time either. And so I'm going to hit undo, and I have my layers again. There's ways to select multiple layers. So if you swipe to the left, you get these options. If you swipe towards the right, you can select the layers. So I'm swiping them all towards the right. If you want to swipe again, it unclicks it. So I have all 5 of them. You see at the top now, I have 2 options. I can delete them or I can group them. So I'm going to hit group, and now it's created what's called a new group. I'm going to rename that my pomegranate group. So for organization's sake, this is one way to make it easier for you to see things. So I don't have to look at 5 pomegranates every single time. So I'm going to hit that little thing that looks like a V, and that will kind of shut them down so that they've all combined into one. I don't have to look at them all at the same time. What's nice about groups is if I want to move things around, I can still do that individually. So if I take that top kind of small pomegranate, I can still move that around by itself. If I want to change that up, it's totally fine and I can do that. But if I want to, I can also move them all together. So if you click on the group itself, if I try to transform it, so I hit the arrow at the top, you see that they're all moving together now. So that's a really nice way to stay organized. If you want things to always be moving together, instead of selecting them all, you can just make them into a group. So that was the first part of today, is copying from an old project, pasting it in, duplicating, and creating layers. If your layers, you know, you don't want to separate these objects anymore and you just want them to be one layer, then you can click on the layer itself and you can flatten it. And you see this isn't a group anymore. There's no little caret. I can't do anything individually. Just every time I press on them, all of them will be together the whole time. That's really nice for saving space. So if you're making copies of like 30 things and you only have a limited amount of layers, you can start, flattening the layers together, and that'll save you space. Right now I have 5 layers in this one group, so it's starting to really build up a lot. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do, if I go into my previous file, is I'm going to take a person and I'm going to change part of them to hold a photograph. So I'm going to color kind of an area that I want to affect, and then within that I'm going to put an image that'll just stay in that one area. So again, we're going to just copy and paste things that we already have. So to make this copy, I'm going to click on my layer, copy that. I'm going to take it into this new file over here. And again, I can slide 3 fingers down and paste it. Or I can go into my actions and paste it. So same thing, either way, you can move this around and put this wherever you want to. I kind of like it in the middle. Might make it a little bit larger just for fun. Let's move her over there. Okay, great. So now you should have your figure just kind of pasted in there. So the next thing that you need to do is you're going to select an area that you want, and we're going to replace that. So I'm going to replace her headband, just that top blue part of her wrap, with something else. And to do that, you need to work in a new layer. So it is very important that you are going to work in a new layer. I don't want to draw just directly on top of this, because if I do draw directly on top of this and I want to erase, you see that I'm erasing my photo. So that's very bad. So let's rename this again. This is person. Girl with the pearl earring. We're going to create a layer on top, and I know I want this to be her headband. So there we go. I'm picking any color that I want to. It doesn't really matter, but any color that you want is fine. I'm just picking something that really stands out. I'm going to go into probably my round brush, and I can do 2 things here. So I can either fill this in using my brush, just painting kind of around it, which can be kind of annoying to do, but is totally possible. So I can do that and just fill that in. That's one way to do it. I like to be a lot neater, and I like to go into my selection tool and fill that in. So I'm in my headband layer, just double checking that I didn't switch back. I'm going to go into my select tool, and I'm going to carefully draw around that headband that I want. And remember, I like using the select tool because it's just way sharper than most of the brushes are. So I'll go just a little bit off the edge to make sure that I get everything that I want to. So select that. So now this is selected. At the bottom, I can just hit the color fill option, and it'll do that for me. If I don't like that, then I can just drop in my color. So whichever way is easier for you. So now you have just your headband layer like that. I'm going to click out of my selection tool. So if it's still selected, you just click on that again to get out of it. So my headband is now there, and it's on top of the person layer. So next I needed to decide what I want to put in the headband. I don't really like it just this green color. There's really no point in it being this green color. It looks very strange. So I'm going to hit, again, a new layer on top of this. And I'm going to create what's called a clipping mask. So you're going to hit on the layer that's above the headband, and you see there's rename, select, copy, fill layer, clear, alpha lock mask, and clipping mask. So you're going to hit on clipping mask, and you see this little arrow appear over here. Oops. You see it's pointing kind of downwards. So that means that's a clipping mask layer. What's nice about a clipping mask, if I just change colors for you, is that I can draw anywhere I want to, but it will only stay in the layer that it's pointing down towards. So if I erase those drawings, it's not erasing the layer under it, but everything is only happening within that kind of green space that I marked out for it. So in this layer, let's just try that again. I'm going to add in a photograph instead of a drawing. So I'm going to insert a photo. You can pick from it. I have an album just full of things that I kind of like. And so for here, let's say I'm going to add in these kind of cool jewels. Why not? So I have a bunch of jewels. Last time I did these cool feathers, and now I'm doing these jewels. And you can see that they're only happening inside of that headband that I marked out. That's because this is a clipping layer. My whole picture is still there, so if I preview it, you can see that whole rectangle is in there, so the whole photo is there. What I can do now is I can just kind of move this with my transform tool at the top, the little arrow. I can move it and pick the spot that's the coolest to me. You can also flip around your image. You can make it a lot smaller so that you can fit in more of your image. You can move things around. Do whatever you like. And so I'm going to angle this so it kind of flows with the angle that she's got going, and find a really cool, nice spot. I kind of like some of the reds that are showing up because they remind me of the pomegranates. So we just have a cool color scheme kind of going. So I'm going to put it in there. Some of the edges are cut off, and they're just going to get cut off once I, change my picture, but that's fine. So you can see that that rectangle takes up a lot of space, but that's okay. So I'm going to click into my layers. You can see that photo is tilted now, but it's still just pointing down to the headband. And so that's what a clipping mask does, is it confines the above image to whatever is in the layer it's pointing down to. If I go back into my headband layer, right? Let's say I made a mistake and my headband layer just went into her eyes. I can just draw with my green. So I can draw with my green thing. If I make my headband layer way bigger so it covers her whole face, then my clipping mask will also get stuck to her whole face. So whatever you do to the layer below, that's what will be the boundaries of the layer above it. So it'll stick to that. I don't think that's really necessary right now, so I'm just going to undo. If I erase any of my photo, you'll be able to see the green below it. So this is my eraser, I'm taking it to it. But that's all you need. So that is how you create a clipping mask. I'm going to rename this. So this is like jewelry. And it has the little arrow, so I know it's a clipping mask. If you want to help yourself out, you can say it's the clipping mask, just write down CM, but that's not really necessary. So that's everything that we need to do. Clipping masks are really great because they also can do things with like shading, or if you just want to stay in a certain area, you can make anything a clipping mask. So if I go into my pomegranate group, and again, I want to take one of the pomegranates, let's say that second one that we can see really well at the corner, I can go above there, I can make something a clipping mask, and I can insert a photo that will take over that kind of space. So if I want to put this cool flower in there instead, then notice how it just sticks into where that pomegranate is. And I can place that as well. So anything can be a clipping mask layer. You can do several clipping mask layers. So if I make another one on top of it, I can draw in here. And it'll only stick to whatever is the one that it's pointing down to. So this is sticking to that layer right there. Again, this is all kind of unnecessary, but kind of cool to show. So when you are done, you have your clipping mask layer stuck to something and then your person. You are good. You already have your group. You can make that just collapsed so I don't have to see the whole thing. And then you are going to take a screenshot.